Well, shit. Hey, I didn't swear within the first 7 seconds, so YouTube can't do anything about it. Anyways, I was just saying that I'm not expecting a whole lot of people to be here to watch this stream because this is grad season for, I assume, most of the world. And so, yeah, people are busy. People are doing other things. And yeah, so we'll see how it goes. How long has this been out? I just started. What are we at? Like a couple minutes? Just under 3 minutes is what we're at here. So anyways, today we've got the developers of Carbon. They're in my back studio right now. We've got Death and Rawl both ready to go. And we'll see what's going on. We'll see what's new in the Carbon development world. And hopefully I will show you. I've got Carbon up on the screen and I've got it in my server. It's operating and doing everything that it's supposed to do. And I'm hoping that they're going to tell me, here, go try this. Here, go try that. This will be cool. You should show them this. And, oh, the framework. Hey, I don't know. The Carbon framework has been about, I want to say, about maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. Not real long. We're going to get into all that. I'm going to get either Death or Rawl to explain what Carbon is and why it should interest you. And then, like I said, hopefully we're going to show you some things. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So anyways, let's get started. And I'm going to bring Death and Rawl into the stream right now. And there we go. Both you gentlemen should be live and ready to go. Death, you're muted, just so that you know that. There you go.
Hey, hello.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. So that was just Rawl that you heard. He is the mastermind behind Carbon. And as soon as we hear Death, because he's still muted, there we go. And we're just going to do a real quick confirmation. So let me know in chat that you can hear Rawl and Death both as soon as they both start talking.
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I'm happy that the feedback thing ain't a thing anymore. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, it's the problem. I knew what happened. I know why that happened, and I should have been able to fix it live, and I, for whatever reason, wasn't able to. I'm not really sure what happened there.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, so they can hear Rawl. Perfect. All right, so obviously the first thing that we need to discuss, I think, for a lot of people that may not even know what Carbon is. So, Rawl, why don't you take a couple of minutes and briefly describe what Carbon is and why it should interest people?
Sure. So Carbon started as a quite like a meme in a private community I was in, and it kind of evolved to a bigger thing. I realized that, okay, this can be an actual project that does the very bare minimum of loading regular plugins that Oxide does, and allows you to basically do what Oxide does, but without the technical, let's say, limitations or out of date factors that Oxide was having and is still having currently. But we've expanded from doing what from being compatible with Oxide, and just we're trying to reinvent something new. We're trying to bring something into the table. We want to do the bare minimum compatibility with Oxide. We want to have the fastest and the quickest way of calling hooks, and we want to be as stable as possible for larger scale servers. We want to deliver more features for developers. We are using the latest C# version, not to go technical, but we are very up to date with all types of specs. We also use dynamic patching, which allows us to not load or add weight to the server unnecessarily, which means only things that plugins need are going to get loaded in memory, which means that it's very quick. It doesn't do anything unnecessary. It's just doing what the plugins are required, and yeah, it's pretty fast.
Good. So essentially, it's an alternative to what we've been using in the past for modding our Rust servers, is essentially what it comes down to.
Yeah,
And
very much so.
a much more lightweight version of it, because we're only calling the resources that we actually use for our specific server.
Yes, yeah, that's the goal. Yes, exactly. We are also coming up, we have already built in like an admin panel, and we come up with a lot of ground level for developers as much as server owners to make it easy to update plugins, to have access to all these things, or let's say remove of the annoyances of hosting servers, or when a framework should definitely come with a lot of features for developers to make quality plugins, which do not create any issues. How should I explain this without being technical? What I mean is we're trying to provide tools so developers can make better plugins, better quality and faster plugins.
Right.
So
more efficient.
Yeah, efficient. That's the word.
Yeah. All right. Gotcha. So, for those of the viewers that have seen my previous, well, definitely I did a live, and I can't remember. Did I do? Yeah, I did do an actual dedicated video on Carbon by itself. So, for those that have seen where we started out, let's say 6 weeks ago, what kind of changes can we expect to see today?
Well, there's a lot of back-end work that's been worked on, which is we've reworked the way the hooks are being called, which we started using profilers, which at very small level, it allows us to see what methods are used, or we're trying to make Carbon to use as less resources as possible and only allow those resources to be allocated for actual plugins running or needing the resources.
Right.
So we are very much focused on optimizing and making it even faster and more stable, as much as obviously adding more compatibility. And there's a few things coming up which are quite interesting. We're going to announce it in the Discord very soon. That's relating to Carbon for Client and a whole bunch of other things for developers, as much as server hosts or owners. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So nothing you want to talk about today?
Right now, well, I think we're going to slowly get into it with the questions, I believe.
Okay. All right. So I just put it at the bottom of the screen there. If you want to keep up to date on everything that's going on in the Carbon world, of course, join their Discord. And of course, you can also follow them on Twitter. Oops, that's me. That's them there. There we go. carbonmod.gg on Twitter. And I'm going to put the link to their Discord up on the screen. There you go. So, Death, can we hear you, or what's up?
Sure.
Oh, wow. There, you got her all sorted out.
Yay.
So now we've got Death in the house too. So Death, what do you think about the progress, the changes, things that are the things that people should expect to see, and hopefully we can show today?
I mean, to be honest, pretty mid. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No
Well,
problem.
I guess it depends. I'm going to have the perspective of a server owner and not a developer, not really developing on Carbon at the moment. So as of right now, I have put a few servers on it. I do feel like it's ready to go. However, if you are a larger org, I would certainly still use a dev server. In your spare time, put up a dev server, test all your plugins. If you have private plugins, make sure it's ready to go. Most plugins should work, but you never know.
Right.
There's just a ton of code that's not meant to work for Carbon, so we have worked around most of that. Just double check.
Right.
For all servers, just don't switch to Carbon right away. Get a test server. Be confident that everything's going to work.
Right.
While Carbon is compatible mostly with Oxide, we do things a little bit differently for more performance. So there may be an edge case where some hooks may be firing out of order. I believe that's mostly fixed, but just double check. But as a server owner, the benefits, not to mention performance and stability, it's just, one specifically is the fact that you can use C#11 in Carbon, which is huge if you're a developer, maybe not a server owner.
Of course.
C#11, I mean, obviously it's like, what is it, 7 versions newer than Oxide, I believe. Oxide is C#6.
Oh wow.
Something like that,
5.
yeah.
There's that many variations.
Yeah, so
in between.
Oh, it's a huge gap, and no
Yeah.
disrespect to Oxide, but there is just so many new libraries you have access to. Coding's a lot easier. There's a lot more performant methods to do the same tasks.
Right.
But it's actually really exciting. I'm still learning some of the benefits of C#11, and I look at some of my old code. It's like, wow, I can do 10 lines of code in 1 line now.
Right.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty satisfying.
And
actually,
I mean, it's obviously something that we would expect as technology progresses, things get easier / better. So, I mean, of course, we would expect that.
Yeah, and the beauty about Carbon is when there's a new version of C#, you're going to have access to it. There's not going to
Right.
be a huge lag in between the C# version and what we support. But
So I've got a question in chat that we're gonna get into this right away. Stability. Carbon is not as stable as Oxide as of right now. I don't really think that's a fair statement, but I'll let Rawl or Death answer that.
again, it depends on what plugins you're running. Like I said, it really depends. I've not had any stability issues. We know a lot of people haven't had stability issues, but it's going to boil down to what plugins you're using and just how your server operates. You got to remember, Carbon is, I believe, 8 months old. So there is some time, there is some kinks to work out, but for the most part, you shouldn't have any issues. But if you do, join the Discord and let us know.
Yeah, and we are
Absolutely,
very
yeah.
quick to submit patches and quick fixes for stuff like that. Throughout the months, we've gotten better at stability, and as in the compatibility parts, that's definitely a priority. We're always looking at improving or allowing more and more plugins to work better and just generally to work. And yeah.
The responsiveness that you get in the Discord, basically you can go into their Discord, and if you have questions, comments, concerns, of course, put them in there. And Rawl is usually the one that will respond. And I have not found a time of day where the dude sleeps. So chances are pretty good that you're going to catch him. And if you don't, he's definitely going to get back to you as soon as he can. So there's always that. So one of the things on stability is what you need to consider is custom plugins may have issues that the developers of Carbon can't know about because it's a custom plugin that nobody knows about. Secondarily to that, there is a modding site out there. I don't want to name names, but that basically they're not playing ball, is essentially what it comes down to. So there is an entire catalog of plugins out there that do not work with Carbon. But in most of those cases,
I wouldn't say the entirety. A lot of them work, but
okay,
if plugins use an external extension that's compiled directly using Oxide's DLLs, that's not going to function because that requires actual Oxide to be present.
right, that makes
So,
sense.
Yeah, so we would be able to implement something that converts any of like all that stuff in memory, but that's not due to legal reasons we are not allowed to do that.
Okay.
So
That makes
um,
sense.
the only thing that would sort out that issue is if the developers themselves would just compile a mirror version of that DLL for Carbon, and that's going to be it won't be a huge amount of work or port for
And
that to
so
happen.
that's what I was referring to when I said that they don't really want to play ball, because like there's not a whole lot of work I mean, there's definitely some work involved, but they have the ability to do what you would need to do to fix all
Yes.
of these issues. Yeah.
Yeah, in our documentations website, we want to also make it easier to understand. Yeah, it's a new thing, so I would like people to understand that as easy as possible, how you can switch like that.
Right.
Or yeah.
Can you guys go over the Can you guys go over the proper procedure to copy over your Oxide groups and permissions? I thought I did it right by copying the files from the data folder, but that doesn't seem right, and that's most definitely not right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no quick and easy way to copy paste permissions, is there?
You can, yeah.
Is there?
That's
Okay.
100%. Yeah, you can just copy the Oxide/data folder on over to Carbon/data folder. Something went wrong, I believe, in your setup because I've never heard of this issue till now. I saw that recently now in the Discord. I'll come back to that. But
Is it the
yeah,
same person?
yeah, yeah, it is the same person. Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah,
So
that's
Better Dead
different.
Than Zed, Raw's going to address that in the Discord for you.
Sure.
And Amino's got a good one too. Can you guys go over the issues with large user data files?
Ah, yes, that was fixed a month and a half ago. That was
There
a little bit of a leak that we had, but it's absolutely sorted. Basically, it would load up the data file multiple times, which is not necessary, and larger servers that have like 80K users in the data file would load up in memory, and that's not good, but that's absolutely sorted. So
Gotcha.
Well, I know what the issue is. Don't have a large data file of users.
That
speaking of
is
which,
definitely an option.
Well,
speaking of which, we
I
are working on a SQL version of the permission system.
SQL.
A SQL, yeah, that's how Death pronounces it. But yeah, the SQL database for users and permissions is coming. It's already there. It's just we need to do more testing to it.
So
So
what's the
let
benefit
me.
of SQL
Oh,
instead?
okay. You got a minute?
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So the problem I see a lot of servers having is those plugins that announce when a server saves.
Yeah.
The
I
reason
hate that.
the reason servers have that is because they typically expect lag when they save. What
Right.
they don't understand is most of that lag, if not all the lag, comes from when Oxide saves the user data file in the permission data file. So if that file is massive, every time the server saves, you're writing all that data to file.
So what you're
So
saying is that's why I don't notice my server saving, because I don't have squat for a player base.
uh,
It's okay. You can say it.
but yeah, basically, a lot of larger
In a
servers,
nutshell.
they don't realize this. A lot of them have adapted to this, so they'll periodically delete their data file.
Right.
If you have like VIP, you'll want to save that in a separate data file. That way, you can wipe the default Oxide data file. But some of the more popular servers, including mine, we've stopped using the default user group system years ago. We switched to SQLite. But the benefit of using SQL to store, that amount of data is you don't have to keep it in memory and you don't have to write it to file. So when a user logs into your server, instead of pulling from a massive collection in memory, you will run a query to grab that information from the database, use it while they're online, and when they disconnect, you ship it off to the database and clear it from memory.
Gotcha.
So if your server is lagging when it saves, check that.
Right.
If you have a massive Oxide data file, that's probably what's causing your server lag when it saves.
I do have to address something here real quick. It's not that he's deliberately being an ass about it. It's okay. He's got his way of doing things, and that's totally okay. He's not being a jerk about it. It's just, I'm not, I'm not really interested in doing that. And that's totally fine. He's not being a jerk about it though. That's important for me to be on the record. Peachy Viking says, copy pause. See, I intentionally didn't say that. I keep getting in shit about it every time I say it, so now I didn't say it. The only OG RAA member copy pasta. Yeah, exactly. Butt Buster Bobby. Good to see you too. It's not paste. That is such a terrible, terrible word. It should be taken out of the English language. I absolutely hate that word. So for those that haven't seen it, this is what the carbon panel will look like after you've gone through the quick setup process, which I have covered on a previous video. So if you want to see what that's all about, definitely go check out that video in my catalog. Now, Raul, something for you. I think I've only put forth one request. And when I said it to you, you said, hey, that's a really good idea. I'm going to implement that. So I'm just going to demonstrate. So I have my panel set up on a hotkey. And I asked, can we make it so that when I hit that same hotkey again, the panel goes away?
Oh, well, oops, I kind of forgot about that. Shit. I mean, that's a very easy one to do, but...
that's exactly what you said at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, though. I absolutely love the panel. Excuse me. So for those that, like I said, have never seen this before, the first tab, you get to see kind of everything that's going on with your server. Bottom left-hand corner is an Archon. You can see what's going on in your server. You can send commands directly from the panel right here, and they take effect just like you would expect them to. You've got a player, essentially... oh no, I just about said player administration, but that's actually not true, is it?
It kind of is, because if you go inspect, yeah, it basically is. Thing is, we implemented a new system, so if you're not an administrator, you can grant that to people that are not, that you don't grant the level 2 auth on the server to be able to access this panel, and they can only see specific options and tabs. That's also a thing. So if you go to, let's say, permissions, to any permissions, and you select whichever person,
sure,
and then go to core, and here you have like those access level 1, 2, and 3. Those grant you different types of levels that you can see on the admin panel. So if level 1 is just viewing things, you cannot access the Archon stuff, you cannot access the permissions tab, players tab, entities, you cannot see that. You can just see an overall info. You can play around yourself and you can see how that works, but it's leveled so you can grant that to people that you do not trust to fully have access as an administrator and execute.
So level 3 is obviously what you're seeing right now,
yeah,
like full access.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what would be the difference between obviously level 1 is just a viewability aspect, giving information about the server. What would level 2 grant you?
Level 2 will grant you the entities tab and players tab, but you won't be able to see permissions and modules. You would also be able to see plugins, but you cannot download. You can only browse, and you cannot download, edit config. You cannot do any of that.
So somebody with level 2, if they have access to the player tab, would they be able to see location?
Yes, they would.
Okay, so this is a moderator thing.
Basically, yeah. Level 2 would be a moderator thing, yeah.
Okay, so it's not like your regular players would ever have access to this.
No. You can grant that.
But you could with level 1.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
On level 1, you do not see this tab at all, so.
Gotcha. Let me get caught up with chat here. And Amino is being a jerk again, because that's what Amino does best. That's cool. And okay, looks good, looks good. Okay, here's a sequel question. Curious, will there be a sequel part for the blueprint data and player data to go from server to server if you're running more than 2 servers?
That's a Rust file, so we don't really manipulate that kind of thing. But I do recommend that the plugin can do that. Like you can have that as a separate system. That doesn't seem to be something that should be built in. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very specific thing, but
So you're essentially making it so that one server talks to another server kind of all the time. You know, if you research a blueprint on server A, it automatically transfers over to server B.
yeah, because you can have like multiple SQL connections, you know, from different servers to the same database, and you can synchronize it that way. That's definitely possible, and you can be up to date and synced up.
But in short, probably not going to happen.
No, this is a very brand new concept. I cannot just say straight up yes. We will have to think about logistics, but it's a cool idea, cool concept.
There you go.
I would say probably not. You could achieve this easily with the plugin, though. I would consider that pretty niche. I don't see a lot of servers wanting to sync blueprints like that.
Yeah,
I
I
actually
mean,
do
especially
believe
when you're
there.
talking about multiple gather rates.
Yeah, I do believe there's already a plugin for blueprints.
I want to say there is too. Yeah.
Maybe SQL blueprints, or I can't remember what site it's on, but I know for sure
Async
there is a
blueprints or
plugin for it.
something. I do recall that, yeah.
As for user data, there is a possibility for that. I don't know if we're going to implement like MySQL. MySQL is probably what you'll need to connect multiple servers together so you can share user data. As of right now, I believe the only support we're implementing is SQLite. I'm not 100% sure on that. But SQLite is for local database, so it's simply for storage. It's not for sharing data between servers. But you still can if they're hosted on the same machine, just not between multiple hosts.
Right. Rustiv asks, what's the point of this plugin? First of all, it's not exactly a plugin. In fact, it's not a plugin at all. It's a complete modding platform, or framework, I guess I should say, which basically makes it so that you would no longer need to use the system that you're currently using right now. You would switch everything over to Carbon, and you would do everything in Carbon. All of your plugin management, permissions, everything server related, you would do it all within the Carbon panel.
Well, the panel you're seeing right now not only controls Carbon, it also gives, the player tab, the entity tab, kind of basically a player permission built in, modules that's Carbon, and plugins. Plugins, I think for most servers, this is the cream of the crop.
This is badass. I'm not this part. I love this.
Yeah, with this, there's no more dragging and dropping plugins. When it's fully integrated, even paid plugins, you can just click a button, download it, click a button, remove it, click a button to configure it. No more having to drag and drop files in your server folder.
Right.
And for servers with multiple servers, like large orgs, we will have an external agent, so you can have the same feature, but outside of the game.
Right. Why do I have no...
Refresh it. Sometimes it times out. I'm not sure why, because we do a request to get the list of the pages, and then we query the plugins list. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I'm pretty sure that was on there before.
It gets wiped every 24 hours to be up to date.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I didn't know that.
Yeah, when the server reboots, it'll automatically start normally. I'm not sure why it didn't now. I guess it failed the first request.
It could be rate limiting too. You can use the code link tab. We don't have any rate limiting.
If you click, let's say, the tab again, the UMA tab, you can see it
there it went.
Yeah, it's just gonna be about 1,000 something.
Yeah, it's a pretty big library.
Yeah.
But since last time, you'll see a new tab, local. So that's your currently installed plugins. Actually, you can click plugins. Oops. The secondary, very left. That's for currently installed plugins.
Right. Instead of having to find it on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
we added that tab specifically for mainly developers, I believe, because we sometimes have local plugins that are not they're not on CodeFlink or UMod, so you want to see everything there.
Private plugins.
Yeah, exactly.
Private.
Yep.
Yeah. And you can also modify the config straight into UI too. So
if you have any of your proprietary plugins, you could see and modify them from this menu as well.
Beautiful.
If you could give an example of how to modify a plugin, the config.
Sure.
That's pretty huge.
I don't know what would be a good one. I mean, I don't know what would be, because this is just my test server, but
I just see what happens. Just click one and hit edit config.
I don't know what that analytics is, but yeah.
So I'll let Raul explain this, but pretty simply, it takes the config and basically lists it in this GUI instead of having
Yeah,
to change it manually in the config file.
it
But I'll
reads
let Raul
every.
explain.
Yeah, it basically creates a UI. How should I say? Like a structure of the JSON file into the UI, and you can, I'm reading if it's a boolean, if it's a true or false property, it's a boolean. You can toggle. Um, then just also array the buttons that say edit. Those are arrays, and you can modify the options in there. That's an empty one, and then since we do not have access, because this is basically us reading a JSON file, so we do not know the structure, the predefined structure of the class. You can see their property name, new property, add label, add toggle, all that. You can basically build your own JSON file there with your own definitions, and it's a bit complicated to explain. You have to get used to it a bit, but there's no way for us to generate, what's expected to be there. So if it's empty,
because you're just reading from an existing JSON.
yeah. So if
Yeah.
there's existing values in that, you can duplicate it, you can modify it then, or you can add multiple. You can customize the layout.
Right.
So it's
I
more or
want
less
to address this, Mike from the Steenamaru Discord, referencing Nexus, and I'm glad somebody brought it up, because when you're talking about going from server to server, that process or that feature Facebonch is working on, and it is called Nexus, if you've never heard of it. First of all, there's some important things that you need to recognize about Nexus. Is it's only going to be for official servers, and it's going to be up to the modding community to make it so that server communities that have multiple servers can make use of that functionality. And there's going to be a lot of limitations, if it's even possible at all. I'm sure it is. But as it stands, or what I'm seeing from 65,000 feet away, is it's not going to work the way that we want it to, I don't think. One thing that I did see here, so now my screen is going dark and I don't like it, so I'm going to change the time, and I can do it directly from Carbon dashboard, and just like that, now we have a new time. So one of the things that I had a question about, is what about editing data files?
Data files are not. Oh, you're dying.
I am currently dying.
They're not meant to be edited. That's my theory. I think we had this discussion, I think, in the Discord. But yeah, data files are meant to be generated and only generated and modified by the plugins. We could integrate that too, since they are JSON files as well. But again, I don't see the sense of that being a thing.
The case that I would use to refute that is like things like better chat and stuff like that. So you're creating better chat groups, and then you want to go in and format what that group looks like in chat. That's all done through the data file. Right,
but that's, to me personally, that's a plugin design flaw. That should be a config or multiple configs.
Fair.
So anything that would be, let's say, manipulated only by the plugin really should be only like it shouldn't even be a JSON file. It should be a protobuf, in my opinion, which is a very high-end and very fast way of serializing and deserializing, saving or loading a file, a data file. So yeah, I'm just saying. I know it's kind of a bummer because I'm saying no to this, but it doesn't really make sense for it.
I get it. That's that's what happens when you forget to turn God mode on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Speaking of which, I think you're using the built-in, right? The Vanish.
I was, yes, that's right.
Yeah, we've added a lot more options and configurations for the Vanish module. Allows you now to have similar effects that you would have on the UMOD version, as in sounds, and it turns no clip and God mode on and off whenever you vanish or unvanish.
Right.
Stuff like that. So
what he's talking about is, oops.
Yeah.
Well,
Why
now
is
that
that
we
not
mentioned
working?
it, we should go over some of the built-in modules
There
that
we
you
go.
could utilize and replace some plugins.
That's true. Yeah.
There's quite a
So
few things built into Carbon. I know you might think why we built it in instead of just using the plugins. Well, the biggest thing is it's less plugins you have to worry about being updated because it's going to be updated alongside Carbon.
Yeah.
It's also less plugins you have to manage and update manually.
right,
And we designed it specifically for Carbon so you could be assured that it's as optimized as possible, hopefully.
right.
Hopefully. Yes. I agree with that.
That's the asterisk that's at the end.
Yeah.
So this is the options for the Vanish module. So as you can see, I have mine set up a little bit differently. So instead of Vanish, instead of writing out the whole word Vanish, I can just type Van. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that I've added an image there, which if you go back to my main screen, you can see, how can you see that? Anyways, you can kind of see that ghost in the bottom left-hand corner there. That's the icon that comes up anytime that you're in Vanish mode. And I don't believe you have a default one in there. Is that correct?
I don't think. No,
Yeah, I don't
no,
think
we don't.
so. Yeah.
But you have the option, so you'll just set it up once and you're good to
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Yeah.
A lot of people have custom, let's say, servers with a more polished, let's say, config system and all that. They would create their own anyways. So.
Right. Sorry,
But
I
yeah,
think
one
I
of
feel like I got sidetracked there.
one of
That's good.
the biggest quality of life that Carbon brings is the ability to install, modify, and edit configs while you basically play the game or being an admin. Just like Bull is, he's
Right
flying
now.
around doing, whatever he wants to do, and he's managing plugins, editing configs, all from the fly without having to alt tab, log into remote desktop. It's all from in game.
Yeah. Which has saved me a ton of time. Without question. So when you're considering time spent on building this stuff, hands down, Carbon's the way to go.
And
there we
even in
go.
a
I was wondering why my hotkey wasn't working for Vanish, and it's because I had the wrong chat command in there. So now I have hotkey on Vanish.
Yeah.
even in a test environment, you could test stuff while you play. Like, if you're looting a monument, you're like, wow, there's too much loot, or wow, I'm getting too much resource from trees. You can open the Carbon menu, edit the config directly, or edit the module, click save, you're ready to go. Keep playing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
speaking of which, you do have the gather manager and the stack manager. And the gather manager, it's kind of a design flaw, I guess, but there's more options in the gather manager config. Like recycle tick, all those are default values, like vanilla values of the game. And you can just modify them the way you want.
And so point of note right here is excavator is built in. You don't have to mess around with any of that stuff. Now I know you can make gather manager do this too, but there's no documentation showing you how to do it or explaining it. Somebody should really make a video on how to modify the excavator values, but nobody has yet. So you could just quickly change that to, let's say 10, save that, done.
And another thing is, if you have, let's say, a helper on your server that you don't want to give back in access, you can give them permission to these tabs, and they can make adjustments for you without having any critical access to your server.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of poorly documented on our documentation side. We're going to have that defined and explain what exactly the permissions are granted and whatnot. And so
That
it's
would
a
be
bit
great.
Yeah, that's coming too. Yeah, there's just a lot to document.
So responding to a question, so
Sure.
there's no reloading of a mod after the adjustment. There is, however, there is a button. If Bull can like edit a plugin, you'll see the option to save or save and reload. So if you go to edit config, see at the top, you'll see cancel, save, and save and reload. If you hit save and reload, it's going to save and reload the plugin automatically. If you hit save, it'll just save and not reload. So yes,
what about
everything
modules?
can be
Do you
done.
have to reload anything in a module? No, it just
No,
goes,
it
right?
gets applied automatically.
Yeah. And that
Modules
is
are
called
basically
runtime updating, right?
how do you mean?
Isn't that what
Runtime?
that's called? Like it just automatically updates as soon as you save it?
Ah, yes, yeah, it's just loading up the config and restarts the module basically. Modules, just in a nutshell, modules are basically plugins, but they are built in. They're like compiled plugins, which are very high. They're very fast It's way faster than a regular plugin to process, and they are very compactly written, so they're very optimized.
What did I just see there a minute ago? What is map protection all about?
That's not released just yet.
Okay.
It's a system we're working on. That's gonna be a combination. It's a service. That's gonna be on CodeFling.
Okay.
It's
familiar
meant to
with.
protect your map. Number one, if you're a creator, it gives you the assurance that people can't just join a server with your map and just yeet it from the map folder. Same for if you're a server with your own maps, it'll protect it. That way, if someone does download your map, they can't use or modify it without the key, quote unquote.
Right. Okay. And it's more than just a password?
It's gonna be a path to the file. It's a file, like a .key file,
Okay.
that has all the information that's required for the server to unlock the map for the server to run it.
Let's talk about optimization, the optimizations module. What can this
In a
do for
nutshell,
us?
that's basically the circular networking that you can find on CodeFling. It's just built into Carbon. It's a free plugin that basically, I don't know if you're familiar, but it optimizes the networking range of the player. So I don't fully understand how it does it, but it just works. It optimizes.
Makes the view round and or spherical instead of square or something like that.
That's yeah.
It also lowers the Cvar for network render distance. But this module, I believe it's kind of a catch-all for now. So any module we add that optimizes servers, so if any small things we can do, will be found in here. Right now it's just that, but this will be a catch-all for anything optimization wise will be found in this one module.
Here's actually a really great question. Do you notice a measurable performance boost with Carbon over Oxide? First of all, I'm a terrible example of this because this is just a test server that no players can even access. But Death, you've now installed Carbon onto some fairly mainstream servers, no?
I have. I wouldn't say mainstream. It has been deployed on our lower pop servers for testing. When I did deploy it on our server that averages about 20 players, I did see a 10 frame increase, which is pretty huge.
That is.
But the performance improvement generally is mainly from dynamic hooks. Dynamic hooks is just what we coined the term of only using hooks from plugins that ask for it instead of just having 600 hooks firing at any given time. But the performance gains is going to be from just a vast amount of optimizations. I wouldn't expect anything huge, but if you're a huge server with a lot of players, it could be pretty drastic for you.
When you're squeezing every single ounce of resources out of your stuff, you're going to notice a difference.
Yeah, we are doing a lot of profiling and testing with specific plugins too sometimes. We want to make sure that the shell, which is Carbon, is going to perform as fast as possible and it won't be the one that's slowing the server down. So we, optimize that first. We do a lot of testing with plugins, see what affects what. And again, as I said at the beginning of the stream, we did a bunch of actually very significant, I would say, I think it's statistically speaking, 40% increase, which doesn't sound much, but on larger servers, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge, yeah. A significant improvement on hook calls, which was very fast before, but now it's even faster. So if you have a huge server with a lot of plugins and a lot of like a big pop, you're definitely gonna see an improvement.
Right.
But the main improvements will only be seen on large pop servers or servers with a bunch of plugins. I know it's nice, it's a nice concept, but smaller servers are already going to have decent performance. But yes, you will see a difference, but that difference is going to depend on your server, how big it is, and how many plugins you have. But just know it's very optimized. I'm not going to say it's perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but we're constantly improving it, and there's no such thing as a micro optimization for us.
Yeah, because if you do a small change, that definitely creates a ripple effect. And we do care about the smaller things too. We want to make sure that because we have older code from the very beginning of the project that we kind of discover again and try to improve it. And what I'm saying is, if you're on Discord and you're following the commits channel, I'm very descriptive in my commits and changes, and we have multiple branches you
just
can
happened?
test out. Sorry?
Oh.
I
Either you dropped out or I dropped out. I'm not sure which.
drop? I'm not sure.
It's okay. You're back now. Continue.
Okay,
It's
right.
fine.
What I was saying is that if you're following the Discord server, the commits channel, that's where we have all the changes listed, and I'm very descriptive in my messages, and you can see exactly what's being changed, what's being added, and the branches and the builds that you can download and test. So there's a bunch of builds of Carbon or versions of Carbon that are not for the public yet or not ready for production, but you can experiment, see what's coming in the future, and they are very frequently updated. So
Speaking of upcoming things, somebody asked in chat, sorry, Carl T asked in chat, is there going to be a way to edit convars using Carbon?
Convars,
Cvars.
I mean, you basically can do that with the built-in Archon console, but are these?
I kind of get the concept, but there's hundreds of convars.
There are hundreds of convars.
I mean, sure, we could have a list and maybe a search feature, but most people just add it in their server CFG. I'm not gonna say no to that idea, but I'm not anytime soon.
And as you can see, it's on your F1 menu. Like it's. I don't know that.
Well, about
0.2%
of them are on that menu. You have to realize there's hundreds of them, and they're about 99% of those hundreds you'll never touch.
I mean, to be honest, best is to just use the find space and then the started if you search for a specific command or convar, you can just search it like find space and then in the console or anywhere you want.
You're talking F1 console.
F1 or in the game or in the Archon panel. Yeah.
Okay, so let me. I feel like I'm missing a bunch of questions here. So if you guys are seeing them, let me know. How does DRM work? That's a good question. I know a lot of people ask about that.
Oh, so DRM is basically digital rights management. So that allows you to centralize plugins to your own server. So if you have multiple servers, you want to not always have to copy or update the plugins on each server manually. You want to have a centralized place where everything gets updated from one source. That's what DRM is. It's not fully, it works right now, but it's not user friendly. Not as user friendly just yet, but that's coming too. But that's the goal. That's what the meaning of the DRM is. So.
Gotcha. The PT Viking asking Carbon for Valheim anytime soon, and I have it on record from both Death and Raw. The Carbon will only ever be for Rust. Has that now changed?
In Minecraft.
And Minecraft, no.
In Maple Story.
In
Fortnite.
No.
In Pokemon Go.
No, we are not. I mean, the concept of reusable covalent stuff, it's cool and all, but it's very. No.
Our primary focus is Rust, and we don't want to add a bunch of bloat to Carbon.
Yeah.
I support that. I
Although
support leaving it
we
just
want to
for
make
Rust.
it. Yeah, it is just for Rust, but to add to that, we basically, the way Carbon's written, we want to make it so you can run Carbon without the Oxide referencing, so you can run, because there are going to be Carbon-only plugins too. So I want to make it possible so you can split apart Carbon from Oxide and be a individual, platform that can be used separately for different types of servers, or because there's huge servers that use extensions. They have bigger systems than just regular plugins that you find on UMod, for instance. And we want to make it so at that level it's consistent and has a, how should I say, it's like it has a good structure that helps you to grow with a server like that.
Right. So do you think Carbon will be preferred over Oxide? I would say, as it stands right now. Okay, so let me explain something here. When Death first came to me and told me that they were working on a project called Carbon, and what's that all about, I was thinking to myself at the time, like, holy shit, did you read my brain and build something exactly what I wanted? Because I was looking for, or I dreamt of having an all-in-one solution, plugin manager, permissions manager, player manager. I wanted everything all built into one feature. And the fact that I can bring it up now by hitting a single hotkey on my keyboard and I have access to everything that I was going for, this is a dream come true for me personally. So to answer your question, yes, I believe this is going to be preferred over Oxide today, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
it has.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that the progress is very consistent and we are very quick at adding and improving and making it more stable and more comfortable for people to use Carbon, with keeping in mind with all the ins and outs that Oxide, because we have to be up to date with everything, with Rust, with Oxide, with the hooks and all that stuff. So we are
Constant
very active.
evolving.
Yes, we are
Yeah.
very active in the development department when it comes to improvement.
When can we play with the Carbon modded client?
Very soon, actually. Right now, the only thing that holds us back from announcing it's already on a repository, but it's private. The only thing that holds us back is the API that allows servers to communicate with Carbon clients, which allows you to load like full-on maps, models, sounds, anything from the server to the client with like similar to the way the workshop works, the Steam workshop works. So we want to make it, because once we deploy this, we would like to allow people to come up with their ideas, and people can build mods, client mods as well for it, which aren't the same as the server. You won't be able to have like CES mods. They're all gonna be managed by the server. So we're just providing tools at a very safe, because when you're working with the client, there's a few limitations we have to think about. Since the client is only going to connect to servers that have EAC or anti-cheat disabled due to the client memory modifications, they have to we have to kind of make sure that all sides are covered. We are on a ground level, so
You need to have protections in place.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah.
So in a real life use case, what are are you saying that we're going to be able to use Carbon client side to bring items into the game that aren't supposed to be there?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things. You can basically add anything.
So any Unity entity, basically, we'll be able to bring into the
game
with
objects or asset bundles. They can all be generated by yourself in a separate Unity project. You can load it up. I already have a couple of videos and screenshots in the Discord. There's a channel dedicated for the client, and you can see the progress on that. I basically made bears and boars and minicopters huge and small, and I was testing around.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, I was playing with that.
Okay, so there you go. If you want to check out what the hell it is that we're talking about, join up on the Carbon Discord. Link is scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. And check out and see what Raul is talking about, the ability that having a Carbon client side is going to allow us to do. It sounds pretty cool.
Also, just to say, there's a shorter Discord link. It's the discord.com/carbonmod.
I didn't have easy access to that.
Or if you're on the Discord client, you can literally just type Carbon mod as the invite. You don't have to do the discord.gg/ just Carbon mod.
There you go.
Word.
There you go. Somebody asked a while ago, where did it go? Oh, I remember what it was. Somebody was asking about the teamwork between the existing framework and Carbon's framework, and there's not a whole lot of working together in that project, simply because all of Oxide's information is readily available to anybody. So they're not working together, but it's only because, I mean, they don't need to. And Oxide is doing its own thing as well. So
Yeah, well, Carbon has a different licensing. We have GPL3 as far as I remember. Yeah, GPL3 license, which is slightly different from MIT, which just allows people to just create a fork of Carbon and duplicate the code and completely create a separate product out of the project. And there's a few internal systems that we do not publicly allow or distribute. But no, there's no direct affiliation with Oxide. We do like Oxide, and Carbon is obviously inspired by Oxide.
of
There's
course.
just the main motivation for Carbon existing is definitely improvement, and we would like to have more community coming in and working with us and communicating with us, and we can spread or make a big platform that's not just the ground level plugin loading. It's also improving quality of life of developers. We added a lot more tools in Carbon, let's say for the CUI, for pooling, and we make sure that we do not provide only the framework as a blank slate. We also provide tools. That's pretty much, yeah.
Gotcha. What is the web request IP and why is it blank?
It defaults to your server IP, with the external server IP, and you can set it. That's an option that Oxide also has, and it's there from the very beginning of Carbon. I never personally used it, but you can send requests. Let's say if you have a plugin that sends requests over the network. Let's say when I'm not sure what example I could give. Let's say when you download an image or something, that request will use that IP, I believe.
Gotcha.
If
Okay.
you have multiple IP addresses configured in your network interface, you can specify what IP you want to send the request as. So you can use your
Yeah.
main server IP or an add-on IP if you prefer.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, here's one. Will people play servers that need client mods though? So we're talking about the Carbon client mod. Is it something that the player is going to have to do on their end, or is it all going to be done?
Yeah, so that is definitely a thing. It's basically you would have a zip, like a patch thing, that the same way you have on the server, you would have for the client. It doesn't replace any client files, it just adds in that folder, and that way it's gonna boot up a separate. It's like when you launch the game without the anti-cheat, because there's like two files, rust.txt and rust client.txt. You run the native Rust client, it's gonna boot up our system, and then the game as usual, and Carbon lives in the background of the client.
So the player isn't going to have to do anything extra though, is
You have to just copy the files on the folder, on the client folder.
Okay.
It'll be a lot. It'll be basically installing server mods, but on the client.
Right. Okay.
Like an add-on. If you've ever played a game with add-ons, there are a few questions we missed. I kind of want to skim over.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sure.
So I don't know if you got this, but Tide Russ asked, what performance gains does Carbon have over Oxide? We did mention the dynamic hooks, which basically only call hooks that plugins request. So again, actually, if you look at the screen, you see where it says hooks. There's
88.
only 88 hooks loaded. If you were on Oxide, you'd have all 670 hooks loaded and firing whenever.
All the time.
Yeah, and
all the time.
there's on-frame too. A lot of on-frame hooks as well that probably are not loaded. We've done statistics, and there's also Profiler built into the admin settings panel that's coming, which allows you to see the actual length of the hook times, and you can preview and profile what plugins use the most performance and what exactly those plugins are being called, as well as to get more technical for developers, we're going to have a way to detect usage of mono behaviors and to detect how heavy those methods are going to get called as well.
Okay.
So if you add more plugins, you'll see that hook number go up depending on if the hooks are not already loaded. But yeah, so I mean, in this case, you only have 88 hooks firing versus 670, which is pretty huge. It's not going to be, you're not going to see a huge FPS increase from it unless you're a very large pop server. Another thing is, I would probably say the biggest thing is just having C#11. There is just so many more performant methods of doing things, especially servers using like links, for example. A lot faster in C#11 compared to like C#6.
Yes, yeah. We
There's
also,
something going on in chat that I'd like to
oh, yeah.
clear up right away. The EAC being disabled is only when we're talking about the client modding aspect of things. So no, EAC is not turned off with Carbon. EAC is still there.
Correct. Yeah.
I just seen the conversation going in a weird direction there, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear. You're not disabling EAC by installing Carbon, 100%.
And lastly, the way hooks are called is way more performant than say Oxide. So it's a lot of compiling things that come together that give you a real world performance increase. Also, Jim Deadlock asked, he's worried that we'll be burned out. I just want to point out that even though Carbon is free, we are going to have some monetization primarily for creators. So with the DRM system, it'll allow creators to basically stream their. Actually, I probably shouldn't jump to that.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But basically, we're gonna have ways of monetization. We have a full-time team. They are paid, so there's really no. I mean, we can get burned out, but this is our full-time job. So yeah, that's really not going to be an issue. I don't know where I was going with that, but no, this isn't a hobby. We're not doing this for fun. I mean, we are, but
Good point, BMG. Yeah.
Yeah.
The people that matter, they're getting paid. This is their job, so they're getting paid. Burnout happens with all of our day jobs or school or whatever it is that you happen to do with your day. So I mean, yes, there is that potential there, but it's kind of, if you want to get paid, you got to do your job.
Let me clarify this. So when I say the team's paid, so Raw is actually full-time Carbon. I haven't done much. I'm supposed to, but I've got my own things. I'm paid by CodeFling, and Kaz is paid by the Patreon for the moment, but he will be paid by CodeFling soon. So if you haven't checked out the Patreon, check it out. All that money goes to Kaz 100%. Like I said, me and Raw get paid by CodeFling.
Yeah. And to be honest, just to complete this part, I do have times when I work too much, but that's not because of my required schedule. I just overwork myself sometimes because I definitely love the project and love improving it.
Seriously, the dude never sleeps. It's amazing.
I have a very, very weird routine, and I go to sleep in the morning at 6 a.m. and then wake up, and it's a weird. I do get my sleep. I get my 7 to 10 hours,
of course,
somehow, but I don't know. I'm very often though working in the day when I'm awake.
But even though we are paid, I just want to say this is a passion project. I've on numerous times, Raw has gone to bed and woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Said, "Fuck, I got a new idea now. I can't sleep," and he works on it.
Of course,
happens. I'm the same way. Not particularly about Carbon, but I'll just have an idea. Like if I'm trying to solve an issue, I'll find out like when I'm laying in bed and I can't sleep. I have to solve.
Yes, that happens to me all the time. Honestly, yeah.
Corrosion Hour actually said it best. It is a sustainable project. And that really is all you need to know. It's going to be around for the long haul. You don't have to worry about it going away.
Yeah, this isn't something we're going to say, we're getting bored of. This is something that's going to generate revenue, and it's going to maintain a full-time dev team.
Yes, yeah. And as I said, the goal is definitely improvement and to make it the best as possible we can do with it. So we learn as we go as well. So
yeah, you don't have to worry about waking up on wipe day and like, oh, I really hope there's going to be an update. You can be assured there will be because our livelihood depends on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Our wiping or updating routine is a bit different. Mm-hmm. We used to update exactly when the wipe that happened, but we learned that we can push updates before, after, within the month, and we consistently push updates so we make sure that it works with the current version and the upcoming version of Rust. As we get access to the servers, the future branches, and it's very convenient if you want to test out your plugins. You can test out Staging Branch, you can test out Aux 01, 002. Yeah, it's very handy. We have like about 6 different builds of Carbon accessible. Yeah, there's 6, which you can test out your plugins, your server performance, and
The likelihood of being able to do that with a paid host system, though, is pretty slim. I'm not going to say impossible. So you're going to want to be doing that on a developer server that you have on your local host, or somewhere where you have a control over which Carbon file actually gets installed.
I want to answer a question. Sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly. Quentin asks, is that a paid product or will it be free? Carbon is and will always be free. It will be monetized, but not for end users. Our monetization will be focused on creators who profit off selling plugins and maps. So if you don't fall in that category, it'll be completely free for you. It'll also generate revenue from all Carbon plugin sales on CodeFling. So even if no one purchases our additional monetization, again, specifically for creators, people who code plugins or make maps, it'll always be funded.
So there you go.
And if not, if we get to a point to where we're not self-sufficient, we'll just scrape off the top of Amino's sales on his ultimate. So either way, it's always going to be funded.
Christian Circa actually has a question / point. Some of their plugins simply stopped working. Not that great at coding, couldn't fix it. So I'd be curious to know which those plugins are, first of all. And I might be able to help you out with that, but you should be a member of the Carbon Discord and bring that to Rawl's attention. So if something happened to get missed or whatever, then he can definitely address that.
Yeah, I would definitely post any errors you have on our Discord. We can either see if it's a Carbon compatibility issue, or we can see if it's a plugin issue. If that's the case, we can reach out to the author to get that corrected.
There you go.
Especially if it's on CodeFling, we can certainly expedite that for you.
This is a really great question and something that did come up in the past. Did you know that you can have separate Carbon folders with a completely different set of plugins and configs? And I didn't know that until about a month ago when Rawl basically said RTFM. And yes, so the documentation does explain how you can define a separate Carbon folder for each one of your servers that you have running. And I've done a video on how to do that with an Oxide framework, and Carbon's setup is honestly very similar. So, but I didn't know that functionality was there, and I'm glad that I was asked that question so that I could go to Rawl and find out.
Yeah, there's a bunch. We offer, you can modify the Carbon folder, the plugins, the configs, the data, modules, extensions. You can also have commands that get called right when Carbon gets installed or right after everything got loaded. Those are 2 different Cvars you can have in your server setup, bat file or something.
So to what end? Like, why would somebody want to do that?
So I'm not really sure, but it's definitely useful. I don't know a realistic kind of idea for that, but it's just, yeah.
Question from Pat. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So that's not a compatibility issue on our end. That's just non-cooperation from the developer. In fact, we have made these extensions compatible, but we can't share them because we would, violate the IP of the author. But basically, they're not going to be on board with Carbon, and you should expect more of their plugins to be reliant on that extension, which will mean more of their plugins will no longer be compatible with Carbon. But there are alternatives, and for anything lacking alternatives, there will be in the future, not by us, but from the community.
Because as the Carbon community starts to kind of separate away from the people that are unwilling to come along, then of course replacement plugins or alternatives are going to start popping up, because that's just the way the community works.
If it's back to Christian, if they are private plugins, simply go ahead and paste the errors just so we can make sure it's not compatibility on our end. If it's not, we'll let you know. It should be very simple changes. The reason for a private plugin not to work is maybe it's referencing an Oxide library, and that'd be just simply changing the namespace or just slightly modifying the code. Either way, you should get it to work on Carbon pretty easily.
Any plans to allow unsafe Harmony mods, so Harmony DLL patch mode, so that DLL patches can work?
So to put it into perspective, the Harmony mods, they are dedicated to work on servers without any frameworks on them, because most Harmony mods, they come with patches that directly interfere with Carbon, which modify the server tags, marks the server as a modded server, or patches certain methods that Carbon needs, as in the bootstrap or when the server starts and all that stuff. So that kind of thing cannot happen. It basically interferes directly with not Oxide, sorry. I was about to say something about Oxide next, but it doesn't play out very well. So you can currently have Harmony patches, but within plugins. They are more managed, they are more appropriate, and they are granting servers to run those custom patches separate in parallel with Carbon's environment. But again, Carbon is built with Harmony, so or runs the Harmony patches dynamically. We want to make sure that the server is stable instead of allowing unverified, basically, code to be executed. So
the short answer would be no.
Well,
I mean, partly.
Yeah.
The short answer is Carbon is basically Harmony with a framework, so the need to have Harmony patches is a bit redundant.
Okay.
So I would recommend getting away from Harmony patches or use Harmony directly in a plugin.
Okay.
But most of the time you would not need that, and porting it to a regular plugin should not be, or I mean, I think it should be, if you have a bigger project or a plugin that you want to distribute, you should make it compatible with the framework, because most servers do use a framework instead of just blank servers with Harmony unmanaged patches.
Also, Carbon has made it easy to implement your own hooks. So if you're using Carbon simply just to make your own hooks, you don't need it. It's already built into Carbon.
Yes.
And we are working on to make it even more easier.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to check something real quick here, because I just had something come to me, and I'm going to ask about it in a couple of seconds. Okay, so here's my question. So back to being able to edit Cvars directly from the Carbon panel, or maybe this can be a module, I guess. I'm not sure. Anyways, the end of wipe event that they've implemented at FacePunch. I know a lot of people are struggling with, setting those Cvar parameters, and I think that would be a beautiful thing to see in the Carbon panel. Set it to set the wipe by date or by time or whatever, but having that ability directly in the Carbon panel, that's a win.
Well, you technically do with the console command.
True, but I'm thinking like, go to this. Oh, I don't have my screen showing.
I get what you're saying.
Go to this section right here to change your wipe date.
Yeah, that's certainly something we'd probably add to that panel. But generally speaking, that is a good suggestion, because that is going to be a common one, because every server wipes at different times. So we'll make a note of that. However, actually not however, sorry. Generally speaking, for all the other convars, who's going to be the arbiter of if it's, if it should be on here or not. So minus the very important convars, we'll make a space for it, but I probably wouldn't expect a panel.
You do open a floodgate by doing that. Is like, oh, they have this convar, why don't they have this convar and this convar, and then all of a sudden you have the entire library.
Yeah, you basically so we can do this in two or three different ways. One, we can have a tab that's disabled by default, and you can enable it within the modules tab, or we can have a plugin, because this whole panel, the admin settings panel, it can be you can generate tabs, custom tabs out of other plugins. So if you have another plugin, it can create those options for you. Or the third is basically to have a built-in tab that has all the possible convars and just a search bar, basically similar to how you see it here, but it's just a whole list of everything you can tweak it, or like that, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so if a developer is listening to this and they want to make their first ever Carbon mod, there you go. You can
Yeah.
Yes,
integrate
that's
into
an idea.
the menu, have your own tab, and list all the convars you want.
The interesting part about the reason why I bring that up is because I assumed that the convars that they put on here would have been like the most commonly used ones, but that is not on here yet, so that's why I bring it up.
I mean, there's a lot of them, so I think it would, yeah.
I believe
those
it's
are manually added.
alphabetical.
Oh, it does look because we go from, yeah, it is, this list is alphabetical, but there's plenty more in between there that they skipped over, so yeah.
Yeah, they're, I think,
Anyways.
manually added and picked.
Well, you got to remember, Face Punch only focuses on vanilla, so they don't care about any, modded oriented convars
True.
or anything, modded servers change. I do have one request.
Sure.
If you could show anyone curious on how easy it is to install a plugin on, let's say, CodeFling,
Oh,
because that's
absolutely.
that's like the biggest thing.
So-
You could search for Thunderpoon. It's one of mine.
Thunderpoon?
Yeah.
Thunderpoon
There we go.
by Death.
You can also search Death, and you can see all the plugins for beauyt developer too.
Oh, don't do that. Oh no. All right. Just.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Okay.
All of the gloriousness.
It's a good thing it's so ambiguous. Some of my thumbnails are questionable.
Okay, so you can just simply search for, and you see me just use the search bar there for a plugin, and you just simply select that plugin, and you can click on download, and when it's done downloading, it will say, I think it says complete or done or.
I don't know. So there was a little bug, and I think you're running one version out. So you're one version off from production right now, and that fixes this specific bug.
Okay, and what is it?
It's basically it doesn't. You have to manually reload it in the console, but it actually downloads it. It just doesn't load it correctly. It's fixed now.
All right, let's pretend it worked.
Yeah, let's pretend it worked.
It says downloaded Thunderpoon.
All right, we'll fix it in post.
It's fixed already. It's pushed. But yeah.
There we go.
Voila, there we go. First try.
So, anyways, from a production standpoint, that will work. When you click on that install button, it will say, I think it says complete. Is that right?
It'll just show up like edit config, the way you see it right now.
Just like this.
Yeah, it'll basically look like that. But you can hit edit
refresh.
config, edit the config directly. You never have to open a JSON file. I don't actually remember what config options that plugin has, but there we go.
So we have permissions that we need to grant, or we can just toggle that off.
But yeah, go ahead and toggle off use permission. Go ahead and set damage to like 10,000. You know what? Just for fun, go ahead and change max size to, I don't know, 100,000 max range. I'm sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's just 200. There we go. I want save and reload.
And detonate chance, we're going to leave that at 100% so that whatever it is that he's getting me to do, it's going to actually do it.
Before you do it,
is this save and reload?
Is this a test server?
It is.
Okay. Now, what you want to do is get you a spear and a bean can grenade and drag it on top of each other.
We want a wooden spear and a bean can grenade, and we're going to drag it on top of each other. And it looks like this as soon as it finishes loading that image. There we go.
Okay, just throw it at, just throw it at trees or something.
And I currently have God mode on. That wasn't very big.
Oh no, it's still processing the tree.
Wait, go to the config again, because you press the button before applying that last option. Setting you set.
Okay. Plugins, Thunderpoon, edit.
Yeah, set the max range again. You have to click off before clicking on save and reload, because that's
I gotcha.
a UI limitation. You have to apply it or send the command first. But now that might lag your server a little bit.
Nah,
that's all right.
It's fine.
It's running on a decent machine.
But yeah, if you're watching, that's how easy it is to install and configure plugins. So if you're, adminning or, playing,
Oh.
bam, you're potentially lagged out.
That could be, yeah. That could very well be.
Oh shit.
It's fine. You didn't just destroy every single thing on your map. I actually did this on my test server, and just seeing all the trees fall down was very satisfying.
I wonder if it's I wonder if it lagged me right out.
Yeah, because it didn't explode, so that means it's still processing the actual destruction.
Awesome.
Or it didn't explode. You never know.
That might take a minute.
Oh no! Oh, the admin panel works, so that means it's loaded.
Yeah,
Or-
it could have just not went off.
All right, let's have a look here. Let's make sure I actually made that change. So let's reduce this so that it's maybe
change the min range too to a close number to the max range.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, okay. Like you think maybe I was too far away.
Yeah, that's a randomized value, I believe, between the ranges.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's not the range from you. That's the range of the explosion effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So just for anybody tuning in just now, this is a plugin called Thunderpoon by Death, and it's available from CodeFlame. Let's see.
Yeah, it's $299.99. You can grab
Nothing.
yours today. Yeah, it's fine, but that's basically the concept.
Anyways,
this
that
is
was
good
the
for,
point.
Yeah, this is good. If you're on a test server and you want to quickly, configure and find new plugins, or if you're on a live server, you're bored, you want to find new plugins, bam.
I think maybe I forgot to click off again. So we're going to try this just one more time. Let's check it this time. So that looks good. Last time. Yeah. All right.
Well,
so anyways.
Yeah, the range you set wasn't that wide, but yeah. Anyways, and this will work for private plugins, assuming they're already installed and they have a config. You can modify the config directly from this menu as well.
Also, if you noticed on the plugins, when you see the plugins list, there's a new icon underneath the star icon on a random plugin, for instance, because you can favorite. No. Go back to the list. Let's say on analytics, you got the star icon. Yeah, so you can favorite them, and you can also have the other button underneath it. It's kind of hidden in a way, but that button is gonna auto-update the plugins regularly. That the system is not in just yet, but it is work in progress. That marks that plugin as automatically updating.
That's a game changer. Let's not glaze over that.
Yeah, it was a request by the community, and I think it's a great idea. So
basically, as soon as an update lands for that plugin, Carbon will automatically update it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can set
monster.
You can set everything's gonna get backed up, all the config and data of that plugin before updating. So you can have security, but yes, you can set a rate and all that stuff. It's gonna be a whole setup.
Wow. That's a game changer right there. I wish I'd known that before, because that was a real live reaction.
Unreleased. Right, it's unreleased, but that's what
it's
I'm
coming
working this month. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure those icons will be improved just a bit too. they are hard to see, and personally,
like for this one right here, this is a one of MJ's plugins. You can't even see that icon there until you actually select it. So you never.
Yeah, it looks like it's missing the fallback image on that.
Yeah.
It has actually the carbon image. If you pull it up, when you click on it, you can see that it's the carbon icon. It's very transparent. I guess I have to do some tweaking with the colors.
You can kind of see it there.
Thing is, the plugins have different types of artworks, so I don't know what colors to make it. So,
So let's get caught up on some questions here. Def, did you find any more questions that you wanted to address?
I've been too distracted. I could run through it real quick. Did you notice the tags on the bottom right of the plugin search?
Yes, I did. And the The two, we'll call them Easter egg ones.
You
Yeah.
can ignore those. If you like click the CodeFling tab, and then click like, let's say, event tag, you'll filter out any files with the event tag.
Yeah. It's
So if
just
you're
another
looking for,
filtering system.
yeah, so if you're looking for an event, you click that tag and bam, you'll see all the events.
Oops. And you can select multiple filters too.
Yeah.
So this is going to completely change the way, if you decide to go with Carbon, this is going to completely change the way you install, manage, modify all of your plugins. You can manage your server, you can manage your permissions. Like there's just so many different things that you can do directly from this panel. It's, like I said, it's definitely a dream come true for sure. For me,
And
anyways.
as we're speaking about the panels, the plugins tab, if you're like a CodeFling user, you're going to be able to safely log in into the plugins panel, and you can access your purchased files and download and manage them through the panel itself.
So why am I not able to do that now?
It's not out there yet. It's a concept, but it is doable. That's a plan. And as Death also mentioned, there's going to be also an agent, separate agent to Carbon. That wouldn't be Carbon thing. It would be CodeFling agent that allows you to manage your servers and all the purchases and all the plugins within one place.
So I'm seeing, a few questions. One from QGert. When are you going to add Rust GPT as a Carbon module? The answer is no. Question from large car trucker. This one's for Rawl, but I'm going to read it out loud to put them on blast. Will static lootables and static lootables extension still work with Carbon?
Yes, absolutely. Same with the rateable bases and a whole bunch of other bigger plugins maybe. They're all working with Carbon just as fine.
Okay.
So there's probably not a plugin on CodeFling that doesn't work with Carbon. Is that correct?
Well, so not to say no to that, most of them are going to work definitely. But right now we have on CodeFling a special tab dedicated for Oxide, currently Oxide plugins that you can take. If you're a developer, you can take and mark it as a Carbon compatible and ready plugin. Most of them are in a separate tab for Carbon compatible plugins. You can see everything that's working and is tested by the developer. So overall, all Oxide plugins should work. But if you see it in a Carbon tab, that's 100% confirmed by the developer that it is going to indeed work with Carbon. So.
Okay.
So if you go to CodeFling and click plugins, you'll see a Carbon tab.
That's on the actual website.
Oh, on the website.
Yeah. I want to point out the team, specifically Mal, has gone through every single free plugin and checked its compatibility and marked it compatible. We have not done that to paid plugins. Any paid plugin you see under the Carbon plugin has been indicated directly from the author.
Okay.
So you will see that the Carbon tab is mostly free plugins at the moment.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that paid plugins haven't been tested, just not by you.
Yeah,
it's just
we
confirmed.
didn't test paid plugins. We might, but we're going to leave that up to the author to mark compatibility for.
Right.
I personally tested a few. I've tested a few that I purchased and I own in my testing environment, and the bigger ones, rateable basis for instance, works seamlessly. I've tested compatibility with the free plugins because the rateable basis uses all the other sub plugins. Let's say True PVE that also works alongside just fine, and yeah, most of them are ready to go.
Yeah, but as of right now, there's 400 plugins confirmed on the Carbon tab. But
yeah,
like we said, we only check free plugins. So most plugins should work. I would double check with the author just in case. But if you're unsure, just go to the Carbon tab on CodeFling.
So something that kind of bugged me a while ago, you said that I'm running an older version of the Carbon panel. Now, is that up to my host?
Different.
Oh, no, but because there was a functionality, we found a bug.
Yeah.
In this one. Is it up to my host to make sure that it has access, or will it automatically grab the latest version anytime I restart the server?
It depends on your setup. But I use a pterodactyl, or I'm not sure, because we
Pterodactyl.
have. Okay, if you use the R egg, because someone in the community, Mike Hawk, has created an egg that automatically updates, and you can choose whichever edition of Carbon on the fly. And there's a whole bunch of awesome settings, and it automatically updates Carbon on every restart of the
Okay.
server.
So maybe I don't have that. I restarted this server yesterday in hopes
Yeah,
of.
I pushed the update about 40 minutes before we joined this call.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
So I just need to update that.
Well, that's a good point to bring up the auto updating.
Mm-hmm.
Raw.
The auto updating. So that's being worked on. We want to make it possible for people to basically update Carbon at runtime, so you don't have to shut down or restart the server when you want to update Carbon or hooks or extensions, because those are compiled DLLs. So they would need a full reload in memory. That's a bit of a tricky one. We are working on it. It is possible. We already have working concept, but we want to make sure that we clean up Carbon, because when we shut down Carbon for updating purposes, we want to make sure that everything is actually turned to vanilla. So all the hooks that have been patched are unpatched successfully, are cleaned, and there's nothing that's gonna malfunction when we want to reload Carbon with the newer version. So it is being worked on. I hope by the end of the month it's going to be out there.
Which real life case of that is if you used to use a plugin called Stack Size Manager from Umod, that what Raul was just describing there is exactly what he's making sure Carbon doesn't do. In that if you unloaded Stack Size Controller, it wouldn't actually put your stacks back to vanilla. Whereas if you're using the Stack Size Controller in Carbon, by reverting all of those hooks back to vanilla, then those stacks would go back to vanilla. What if the config is a complete rewrite, making that configured config useless?
Well, first of all, you can choose what plugins get auto-updated. I think this is an auto-updating feature related question. But if that happens, the alt config is going to get backed up. Most of the time, plugins should not really ever have to override and entirely reset.
Rare.
Yeah, to reset. Like there shouldn't be any, because JSON is built to generate and load JSON like configuration files that do not require such a big like reset basically of the config. So if plugins do that, that's definitely on the plugin not doing it right.
Well, it wouldn't matter as well if you updated it manually or Carbon updated it. Either way, you're making a new config. So let's just hope the author doesn't do that, or if they do, they implement an automatic conversion for the old data.
But again, if you're gonna have it automatically updated, it's gonna get backed up, so you won't lose any data.
So I want to thank Monkey for reminding me to actually be a YouTuber, because that's actually what I'm doing here and not just having a regular conversation. But for all of the viewers that are currently watching this right now, do me a favor and hit that like button if you're enjoying the conversation so far. It seems like every time we do like a burst of likes, more people get brought into the stream. Now, granted, we're an hour and a half into the stream, so we probably won't be going on for too much longer. I don't want to take up a whole bunch of their time. But yeah, so smash that like button for me, because I'm a bad YouTuber and I forgot to tell everyone to do that earlier. Anyway,
and he forgot to mention, if we get $50 in super chats, I'll leak Mike's OnlyFans.
There you go.
Or go to codeping.com/OnlyFans. It's a good place to be. Trust me, it's a good place to be.
One thing I forgot to check on, and where is that window here? There, nope, not that one, this one. Yeah, interesting. So this was the first time ever, actually, that I was streaming to multiple platforms. So I'm streaming to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook all at the same time. And me, an hour and a half in, is the first time I'm actually looking at Twitch to see what that looks like. So that's hilarious.
That's cool. Hey, Twitch.
So yeah, I feel like I may have been neglecting Twitch. I don't know. I don't even remember how to use this anymore. Yeah, I have no idea. So sorry to Twitch if you feel neglected. That definitely wasn't intentional. I'm just not used to having to pay attention to that. So that all being said, let's see. DM for that OF for science. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Too funny.
Let's be honest. The only reason people go to Twitch is to watch the hot tub section now.
Yeah. Oh, see now look at there we go. I just got a Twitch follower. I don't remember the last time I actually got a Twitch follower, but I just got a new one right now. So there we go. All right, so I'm gonna let these guys go here soon, but I want to give chat just a couple more minutes. If you have any burning questions, something you absolutely need to know about Carbon that we haven't covered so far, put that in the chat right now, and we will address that for you. If you don't happen to make it into the chat or whatever, of course, hit up their Carbon. Hit up their Discord at carbonmod.gg. It's available on the website, which is also No, what is it? It's not carbonmod.gg. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
The
Carbon
Discord
Mod.
is just Carbon Mod.
Yeah.
Word.
I was mixing it all up.
Carbonmod.gg for our website, or docs.carbonmod.gg is the docs page where we have a lot of information about the modules, hooks. You can see all the items there. You can browse and for your own use.
As well as being able to run two separate Carbon configurations and plugins and stuff like that. If you're running multiple servers out of one instance of Rust, you can have two different Carbon settings for each one of those individual servers. All that information is in there as well.
So Jax asked, hey, I just joined the chat. What's the pros and cons? I'm not going to go through everything again. However, you can watch this VOD when it's out. So basically wait for this to go on Bull's YouTube and watch the entire thing.
That's fair.
The next question, is there a launch date? No, we're not doing a launch date at the moment. We're taking
I keep trying to get them to commit to a date and they just absolutely will not do it.
We're in no rush. We want to make sure everything's perfect, and we want to do slow adoption right now. That way, if there's any more lingering issues, we can fix it without too many people having issues.
Mike responding about, the pterodactyl egg. Yep. Okay. It's honestly something probably with my host, not necessarily with the egg, because I don't know that I can determine which what's the word I'm looking for? I can't determine which boot image I can use.
So we are running on 178 servers currently, which may not sound too much, but right now we do have consistent users of Carbon, and we work quite often and discuss quite often about performance improvements and feedback, and according to that, we just improve Carbon as a whole. So we're very communicative and we improve a lot.
That's for sure.
So yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of servers testing Carbon right now, but we're not fully released. We have no date right now. It's not going to be too much longer, but we don't want to give a date when we're not confident.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're not in a rush. We want to make sure everything's ready to go and perfect before we decide to release it.
Yeah, you have to also keep in mind, because it's not just Carbon having the issues of the implementations and compatibility. It also comes through the updates that Rust and maybe Oxide pushes, like hooks. We are definitely fully compatible with Oxide's hooks. But sometimes Rust does push an update that affects not only Carbon, but also a lot of plugins that need updating. And that's also to keep in mind. It's kind of a third-party dependency that just, kind of, if one breaks, everything else breaks too.
Yeah.
In the sense. So
it's also worth mentioning, we're talking about public release and stuff like that. It's not like Carbon's not available to you. It's just not like their official launch day hasn't happened yet. So if you want to be trying Carbon, you definitely can. It's available to everybody. It's not some secret clan group that you have to be a part of.
Yeah,
Yes,
anyone can use Carbon. I not really release, but more so an endorsement or
Yeah.
a guarantee that everything will be flawless for you.
Right.
Yeah, it really depends on you and the servers the plugins you want to run on your servers, and because again, it's very versatile. It depends on the situation really, because most people, or let's say 178 servers right now, can run without any problems, but you may have a problem. When it comes to that, you can just discuss with us. We're open for the issues to be sorted. We're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and we want to also work on Carbon specific things as much as improvements and adding benefit to people's requests for things to work better and improve.
Beautiful.
Large car trucker asks, loan design will auto update. It depends. We will open implementation for any sites willing to share that kind of API with us. So that's really up to Loan, and if they're willing to work with us on that.
Actually, I spoke with Lone directly. There's already a tab, but it's not enabled. Thing is, Lone very nicely did provide us an API which grants us access to view the currently available plugins on the website. Although there's no way for us to be able to download the free ones the way we do with Carbon and UMod. Sorry, Kotlin and UMod. But yeah, we were just waiting for that. Once that's available, you're gonna see the tab there too.
Oh, sorry.
Beautiful.
Sorry, my brain went to another dimension. I was referring to paid content.
I see.
The reason Loan doesn't have a tab now is I think they have like maybe 3 free plugins. And without that implementation of being able to download paid plugins, it kind of makes it useless why it's there. There's only like
Yeah, I
3.
see
Yeah,
what
the
you're
free
saying.
plugins, yeah.
Yeah.
So if they get more free plugins, I mean they did have their own tab at one point, but until we can come together and work on implementation to allow you to download free and paid content, there's no point in having a tab there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
There was another question I wanted to. It was actually pretty important. I found it.
I will respond to Avita here. What I highly suggest you do is run basically a developer server, whether that means you put it on a local host or a spare, whatever you've got going on, and just basically make a replica of your live server. And instead of installing Oxide, install Carbon instead, and look for conflicts before you go to your live server. That's the best piece of advice I can give you there.
If you're referring to losing access to Chaos plugins, I would just recommend finding alternatives. The only one I can't think of that has alternatives would be your Zombie Horde in Ubertool. Everything else, though, does have a few alternatives. The question, by the way, was by TJ. He asked, can Carbon help me order pizza faster? And the answer is actually yes.
Nice.
So you're going to have less issues with Carbon, so you have more free time to do what you need to do in real life.
That's very fair.
That's very. I didn't think about it like that. That's actually pretty.
Googer asks, will Carbon help me with my mental health issues?
It answers that question too.
Yes, but it's $9.95 a month.
Less
sure,
stress.
but you need an exorcism for that. Lizard Mod asks, roll.
Yes.
Okay, so these are basically the brains behind Carbon. Let's get an F in chat. Let's say thank you to Death and Roll for spending, which is what has turned out to be twice as long as what I usually ask for from them. And
I loved it. It was great. I like.
Well, you
Good.
did say we can go as long as we wanted to.
That's true. I did actually say that.
More hours of free time.
That is true. Well, I mean, I love learning about things that not everyone else knows. So tell us something that's coming that you haven't told anybody.
Yes.
It should have been off the top of your head. There's got to be something that's like.
Well, there's
mind
quite
blowing.
a few things, but it's a matter of not giving false promises.
Yeah, fair enough. And I put you on the spot. That wasn't previously discussed.
Yeah, we have tons of crazy ideas. We just don't know if they're all possible yet.
But yeah, we experiment with things, but we do prioritize the time spent on carbon development to be, you know, on what's worth and all
Yeah.
the, you know, focusing on what's to focus on and what matters most for now. But right when
Priority
let's say we
list.
are, yeah, exactly. When
Yeah.
we're like out of balance and we are finding comfortable with adding more cool things to carbon, we are very directly communicating with the community, and I'm very happy with the suggestions. And a lot of them are very creative, very beneficial for most people too, and they're very also new and very creative. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Goo
Beautiful.
asks, he wants secrets. I have a secret for you.
Okay.
If you go into your server console and type in fog space 1000, you can replicate a nuke effect on your map.
I don't think I want to do that.
So go ahead, go on your server, go into Archon and type fog space 1000, and then a couple seconds later, just do fog -1.
Oh,
Now
that's
you have a
smokes.
nuke dropping on your map.
That's pretty interesting.
So if you do fog
What?
-1, it'll slowly fade back out, and you can use this to implement your own nuking mechanics. You're welcome.
There you
That's
go.
creative.
That
That's cool.
is disgusting.
So there's your secret,
Disgusting.
Goo. You're welcome. That'll be $4.99 on our OnlyFans. Thank you.
Yeah, right?
Yes. I didn't know that. That's
Oops.
And it slowly
Oh, wow.
fades out too. It's actually pretty nice.
That's
Wow.
ballin'. Yeah, okay, I like that. That's actually
cool.
not
That should be a thing.
bad. Shit, that was just that made me think of something, and what the hell was it?
Go. No, you.
I should really learn how to write
Oh,
things down.
unrelated. There's a new plugin on CodeFling that allows jets to nuke the map. Unrelated.
What is that called? I think I just seen. Is it Killjets?
There's a few events now. It's Jet Event by Razor. It's available on his website too. It's on CodeFling now. But this will give the F-15s the ability to drop bombs on the map if you're interested in expanding the functionality of the current billboard F-15s.
And that is a very rare sneak peek into next week's video, just so that everyone is aware. All right, so Raul, your first mission that you have to come through for me on is making it so that I can hit this button and the panel goes away.
Okay. You'll see a commit to that, and I'll ping you to the commit.
Beautiful.
Well, you have to bind something to that key. There's only a few inputs we can actually hook into. Escape is not one of them, unfortunately.
Right.
I think it works. If you go to the panel and you select, let's say, a different tab, let's say players and these, and then you press the key bind again, it's gonna send you to the first one. That means we can close it too.
Okay.
It's just basically pulling up and resetting the tab index.
Right.
So we can definitely disable that panel when you press it again.
Right. All right. Thank you all so much. I appreciate the two developers of Carbon. I'm going to let them go, and then I'm going to shoot the shit with you all for a couple minutes after. So thanks to Death and Raw.
Thanks for having us. Sorry.
All right. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit.
I'm a bit nervous, but
all right, so that is the latest and greatest with Carbon. And if you are interested in checking out Carbon for your own servers, of course, we always recommend that you run a developer's server instead. You don't necessarily want to just immediately go to your live server and just boom, switch over to Carbon from Oxide. So run a test server, make sure that everything is going to work correctly. And once you're confident that it's going to, you switch to Carbon and you have all of this functionality that I've now shown you all about for the last 2 hours. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't remember to leave a like on this video. Or alternatively, remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on a new video next week, which if you were paying attention a couple minutes ago, I gave you a hint as to what it's going to be. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Peace out.